Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and you are watching Gurukul English classes. It's your Shikhadi and today we will revise one short revision of the book Footprints Without Feet of class 10th. So let's start and the first chapter is A Triumph of Surgery. So first of all, we will revise the summary of the chapter A Triumph of Surgery and we will discuss in this video the all the chapters, important questions, answers. So please subscribe my channel and like and share with your friends if you like it. So let's start. Triumph of Surgery is the story narrates the episode where the narrator, the Dr. James Harriet, who is a veterinary surgeon, saves the life of a dull dog, Tricky. The story starts when Dr. James was driving. He saw Mrs. Pumphrey and Tricky. Mrs. Pumphrey, the owner of Tricky, he was shocked to see that Tricky had become very fat and very ill. So he inquired about Tricky's health from Mrs. Pumphrey. As you see here in the picture, Mrs. Pumphrey, Dr. Harriet, and Tricky. So Mrs. Pumphrey explained Dr. James that she felt that Tricky was suffering from malnutrition. So she had been giving him some extra food. And extra food was that? Yes. Mrs. Pumphrey said, "Oh, well, Mr. Harriet, I am sure you are right, but it is so difficult, so difficult." She set off, head down along the road, as he determined to put the new Dagmy into practice immediately. After learning about Tricky's condition and his routine, Dr. James informed Mrs. Pumphrey that if she did not reduce his food and increase his exercise, her dog would fall ill. And as Mr. Pumphrey has described, after some days, Mrs. Pumphrey called Dr. Harriet and informed that Tricky was not eating anything and had been vomiting very badly. In this time, Dr. James suggested Mrs. Pumphrey to hospitalize him for a fortnight for observation. Fortnight was that 15 days time is called fortnight. So that proper treatment could follow, Mrs. Pumphrey was sad, but she allowed him to take Tricky. Dr. James carried Tricky wrapped in a blanket to his car while the maid servant started keeping the things that Tricky would need during hospitalization. And what was the things? The things was, as you see in this paragraph, the entire staff was roused and bringing his day bed, night bed, favorite cushions, toys, rubber rings, breakfast bowl, lunch bowl, supper bowl. And with that, as he moved off, Mrs. Pumphrey, with a despairing cry, threw an armful of the little coat through the window. But Dr. Pumphrey did not take anything, and in the hospital, Tricky was put on a strict water diet for first 2 days. So this is the important question: what was given to Tricky for first 2 days? So this the answer was water, only water. At the end of the second day, Tricky started to show some interest in his surroundings. On the third day, he walked slowly and joined the greyhound in the garden. Later, he ran with enthusiasm when the food was served. He also ate the food kept for him, as you see here. And Dr. Harriet kept an eye through the door. While Tricky was recovering, Mrs. Pumphrey used to call Dr. James' clinic several times a day to know about Tricky's recovery. Dr. James assured her that Tricky was out of danger, but Mrs. Pumphrey started sending eggs, wine for Tricky. The food sent for Tricky was eaten by Dr. James and his team. After a fortnight, she also sent some brandy. Dr. James called her and informed Mrs. Pumphrey that Tricky was fit and could go home. Mrs. Pumphrey reached the surgery within half an hour. As soon as the dog saw his owner, he jumped into her lap and started licking her face. As you see, Mrs. Pumphrey was very happy to see Tricky. Mrs. Pumphrey thanked Dr. James Harriet and called the treatment a triumph of surgery as it is in reality. So this is the chapter, And now we will discuss some questions. Question number, first of all, we will discuss about the short questions. So question number 1 is, how was Mrs. Pumphrey responsible for the poor condition of Tricky? Question number 2, what was the only way to save Tricky? Question number 3, uh, what does Mrs. Pumphrey to do help Tricky? Is she wise in this? Question number 4, what treatment did the doctor give to Tricky, or how did the doctor cure Tricky? And next question is, why does Mrs. Pumphrey think the dog's recovery is a trump of surgery? Now we will discuss about long questions, and in the long question, uh, question number 1 is, what kind of a person do you think the narrator, our veterinary surgeon, is? Would you say he is tactful as well as full of common sense? Okay, and the character sketch of Mrs. Pumphrey. So move forward to the next chapter, and that is the thief's story. The thief's story is written by Ruskin Bond. In this story, a young thief named Hari Singh encounters a trusting and kind man named Anil. Hari met Anil when he was 15 years old while he was watching a wrestling match. Hari thought that he could easily steal from Anil, so he goes to Anil and asks to work for him. Even though Anil can't pay him, Anil agrees and Hari begins living with him on the condition that Hari has to cook. On the first day, on the first night, when Anil finds that Hari has lied to him because he cooked the meal and the meal was disaster. So apart from cooking, Anil also taught Hari to write his name and promised to teach him how to cook, how to write whole sentences, and how to add numbers. So Anil and Hari live together. One evening, Anil returns home with money from selling a book to a publisher because he was a writer, which he keeps under the mattress. Hari feels tempted to steal it. He remembers that he has been working for Anil for almost a month and had gained Anil's trust. Anil had given the key of the room to Hari. For Hari, this was the opportunity to rob Anil. So, due to Anil's trust, it was a difficult task for Hari, but he put away these thoughts and decided to rob Anil that night. Hari goes into Anil's room while he is asleep, takes the money from under the mattress, and plans to catch a train to Lucknow. When he counted the money, he was happy to find 600 rupees. As you see here, he stole the money from the mattress. In the excitement of theft, Hari forgot that apart from giving him some money, Anil also educated him. He understood that it was easy to steal, but it was difficult to be respected like Anil. Finally, Hari decided to go back to Anil. He went back into the room and put back the wet currency because it was raining under the mattress and went to sleep. Next morning, Hari woke up. Late in the morning, he found that Anil had already prepared tea. Anil gave a 50 rupees note to Hari, which was still wet. He told Hari that he had earned some money by selling a book to a publisher and now would be able to pay him regularly. He also told Hari that they would start writing sentences from that day. Hari felt that Anil knew about the theft, but he didn't say anything to him about it. So this is the story, the thief's story. The most important questions, short answer questions are: question number 1, who is the narrator of the story, the thief's story, and what was his profession before he came to Anil? Question number 2, how many rupees did Hari Singh find when he counted the notes? Question number 3, was Hari Singh his real name? Why did not he tell his real name? Next question, what does Hari Singh say about the different reactions of people when they are robbed? Next question, why was the thief Hari Singh grateful to Anil? Long questions. So first long question is character sketch of Hari Singh. Question number 2 is, Hari Singh did not board the express and return to Anil. It shows that everyone has some conscience that they do not put in practice. Elaborate with reference to the thief's story. So these are some important questions. So move forward to the next chapter, and that is the Midnight Visitor. Midnight Visitor is a story about two smart secret agents who try to trick each other. Ozable, a secret agent, is expecting to receive a very important report about some new missiles. Another secret agent, Max, also wants to get the report, and so he threatens Ozable. The story begins with Fowler, a young writer. Here you can see he is a Fowler, and he is Ozable, and he is Max. At a French hotel, Ozable, a supposed secret agent, did not fit the typical image of a spy. Fowler was disappointed to see Ozable as he could not find any characteristics of a secret agent in Ozable, as he had read. Ozable told Fowler that soon he would receive a very important report that could change the course of history. As they entered Ozable's room, they were surprised to find a man named Max standing inside with a pistol. Max demands the paper Ozable was expecting, claiming it will be safer with him. Ozable calmly down and complained about the balcony that is attached to his room. He told Fowler that this was the second time that someone used the balcony to secretly enter his room. Ozable explained to Fowler that it was actually not his balcony but the balcony of the next apartment. He further told him that his room and the next apartment were earlier a larger unit. Now, the unit had been divided but the balcony still existed. The management had done nothing to block the balcony. Then Max told Ozable that the report would arrive in half an hour. Ozable wanted to know how Max came to know about the report, but Max asked Ozable how his people had got that report. Just then, someone knocked on the door. Ozable calmly explained that he had asked the police to check on him for safety. This made Max nervous. He insisted they send the police away and escaped from the balcony with a loud scream. And after hearing the scream, the writer became very horrified. When the door opened, it was not the police but a waiter with a drink for Ozable. Ozable clarified that there were no police, just the waiter he was expecting. Fowler asked about the balcony and was shocked when Ozable revealed the truth that there was no balcony. This surprising twist left both Fowler and the reader amazed at Ozable's clever plan to outsmart Max and protect the important report. As you can see here, he jumped from the balcony because he thought that there was balcony, but there was not a balcony. This was the plan of Ozable. So this is the story, The Midnight Visitor, and the most important short question from this chapter are: why did Max come in Ozable's room? Question number 2. What did Ozable want to show Fowler in his room? Question number 3. What was unique about the ascent of Ozable? Question number next. Who is Fowler and what is his first authentic thrill of the day? There were no important questions from this chapter, so let's move forward to the next chapter, and that is A Question of Trust. A Question of Trust is a story written by Victor Canning. This is a story about Horace who robbed a safe every year to finance his hobby of reading rare and expensive books. What a smart idea! And he secretly bought the books through an agent. However, 15 years ago, he was sent to prison for a robbery for the first time. That year, Horace had targeted Shotover Grange, which had jewels worth £15,000. He had thoroughly studied the layout of the house from a magazine article and knew that the family was in London. He chose an afternoon for his theft when the servants would be away at the movies. Using a key, he saw the housekeeper hang outside. Horace entered the house. He also managed to calm the house dog Sherry. Horace knew that the safe was located in the living room behind a painting. Despite being slightly disturbed by his allergy to the flowers in the room, he disabled the poorly constructed burglar arm and proceeded to open the safe using his tools. However, his plans were interrupted when a woman appeared in the doorway. She claimed to be the wife of the house owner and was surprisingly calm and even amused to find a burglar in her home. She told Horace that he would see a doctor for his allergy if he is serious about his work. She also warned him that if he tried to run, she would call the police. Horace asked the woman to let him go, promising he would not steal again. The woman agreed on one condition. She told him that she promised her husband to take the jewels to the bank. But she forgot and kept the jewel in her safe. She wanted to wear them at a party but had forgotten the code. Within an hour, Horace successfully opened the safe and left the house. As you see here, the lady, the dog, and the ride. Horace did not steal for 2 days, keeping his promise to the woman, but on the third day he started planning another theft. But he is caught for the jewel theft at a Shotover Grange, as his fingerprints were found everywhere. Nobody believed his story that the lady of the house asked him to open the safe because the real owner was a 60-year-old woman. Said that his story was nonsense. As a result, Horace ended up working as an assistant in the prison library and remembered the lady who cheated him. So, Horace is now the assistant librarian in the prison. He often thinks of the charming, clever young lady who was in the same profession as he was and tricked him. He gets very angry when anyone talks about honor among thieves. So, this is the story, a question of trust, and some important short questions from this chapter are: give a brief description of Horace Danby. Question number 2, how did Horace enter in his house? Question number 3, why does Horace steal every year? Question number 4, and important, who is the real culprit in this story? Long question is, how is Horace Danby cheated by the lady in the story? A question of trust. So it means there is a summary of the chapter in this question is the answer. So let's move forward to the another chapter. And the chapter is Footprints Without Feet, which is taken from the novel The Invisible Man, written by H.G. Wells. This chapter is the story of Griffin, a scientist who discovers how to become invisible. If you want to know this chapter in a movie, then see the movie Mr. India of Anil Kapoor. So let's know about Griffin. Griffin was a great scientist, but he was rather a lawless person. His landlord did not like him and tried to eject him from the house. So Griffin set fire to his landlord's house. To escape from this situation, Griffin removed his clothes and became invisible. Later, he became a homeless wanderer in London without any clothes and without any money. So the story started with the two boys who were surprised at the fresh muddy imprints of a pair of bare feet. But they could not see the person who was making the footsteps. They followed the footmarks, but the footprints soon disappeared. The footprints had been made by Griffin, an eccentric scientist who had discovered a drug to make his body invisible. Griffin managed to escape from the boys but faced more trouble. He found himself in need of clothes due to the chilly weather, so he entered a big London store where he not only found clothing but also food. He decided to spend the night there. Next morning, the shop assistant opened the store. On being seen, Griffin started running. As you can see here, he ran away and started to remove his clothes one by one and become invisible one by one. Then, again in need of clothes, he went to a theatre company's stockroom, where he disguised himself with bandages, glasses, a false nose, bushy side whiskers, and a hat. To avoid being seen, Griffin attacked and robbed the shopkeeper before disappearing again. Griffin came to an inn in a pink for peace. He paid in advance, which made Mrs. Hall, who is the landlady, the innkeeper, overlooked his odd behavior. But soon Griffin ran out of money and pretended to wait for a check. One morning, a clergyman and his wife found money missing from their study. On the same day, when Mrs. Hall found Griffin's room open, she and her husband entered the room. Suddenly, Mrs. Hall heard a sniff, and the hat near the bedpost was thrown on her face. Then the bedroom chair was thrown at her, and both the landlord and his wife were pushed out of the room. When the news of a burglary occurred at the clergyman's house, Griffin became suspected, and the constable, Mr. Jaffers, was called away. In his anger, Griffin um, took off his clothes and became invisible again. This surprised the people in the bar. When Mr. Constable Jeffers arrived, he was shocked to have to arrest a man who had no head. Yet he tried to catch him. Soon Jeffers was knocked unconscious, and Griffin showed his all the eccentric things before all the person. All were surprised to see Griffin become headless. And after this, a remarkable scene as the policeman tried to get hold of a man who was becoming more and more invisible as he threw off one garment after another. Finally, a shirt flew into the air, and the constable found himself struggling with someone he could not see at all. There were nervous, excited cries of hold him, but Griffin had shaken himself free, and no one knew where to lay hands on him. So, this is a very important chapter of the book Footprints Without Feet, and the most important long question from this chapter is character sketch of Griffin. Or Griffin was rather a lawless person. Griffin was really a scientist, a brilliant scientist though he was. Griffin was rather a lawless person. Comment on this statement is the most important question from this chapter. Some short questions are, what was the mystery of the footprints? Question number 2. How did Griffin save himself from Mrs. Hall? Question number 3. Was Griffin a lawless person? What is your opinion about him? And question number 4, and the most important question, what curious episode occurs in the study of clergymen? So these are some important questions, and now we will move forward to the next chapter, and that is the making of a job lagi. Chapter 6, The Making of a Scientist, written by Robert W. Peterson. This story introduces Richard H. Bright, who made significant contributions to the scientific community. At the young age of 22, Bright, along with his college roommate, gained attention in the scientific world by presenting a groundbreaking theory. Bright and his friend's article was published in the scientific journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Science. So let's know about Richard A. Bright. A Bright journey into the world of a science traces back to his childhood in reading, Pennsylvania, where he developed a keen interest in collecting various objects such as rocks, fossils, coins, and particularly butterflies. Yes, butterflies. He collected butterflies at an early age. He also took interest in the science of astronomy and loved to gaze at the stars all night. Richard had lost his father when he was in third grade. His mother encouraged his interest in learning. She took him on trips, bought him telescopes, microscopes, cameras, mountaining materials, and many other equipments. In second grade, he had collected 25 species of butterflies found around his hometown. His mother probably would have been the end of his butterfly collecting when his mother got him a book named The Travels of Monarch X. And this is the most important question. What is the name of the book? The Travels of Monarch X. From where he found an invitation for studying the migration of butterflies. Readers were told to tag butterflies for research by Dr. Frederick A. Ergrat of University of Toronto, Canada. Soon, Richard started tagging monarch butterflies. He would raise a stock of butterflies, catch a female monarch, and take her eggs. Then he would tag their wings and free them. So he started losing interest in butterflies. Soon he realized what real science was when he was in 7th grade. With guidance from Dr. Ugrat, he conducted various experiments throughout high school. When Richard was in 8th grade, he had taken the project wherein he had tried to find the cause of a viral disease that kills monarch caterpillars. Here he also describes two butterflies, mainly Viceroy and Monarch. You can see the difference between two butterflies in this picture. Richard, along with another science student, built a device which showed that the 12 tiny gold spots on monarch's pupa was producing a hormone necessary for the butterfly's full development. This project was won Richard first place in country science fair. He also got entry into the International Science and Engineering Fair. There he won third place for geology and also got a chance to work at the entomology laboratory of the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research during summer. When Richard was a high school junior, he continued his advanced research on the monarch's pupa. Later, Richard joined Harvard University after summer. In his junior year, he got the idea of his new theory about cell life while looking at the X-ray photos of chemical structure of a hormone. And he and his colleague James R. Wong together wrote a paper explaining their theory. Richard graduated with second position in the class of 1,510 students and became a graduate student researcher. Richard was not only a scientist but also an all-rounder. He was a champion, debater, and a public speaker. He was also a good canoeist, an outdoor person, and also a great photographer. Mr. Wiener praised Richard for his hard work and his healthy competitiveness, which was just for the sake of doing his best. And here, the most important question: ki, what is the one of the great ingredients in the making of a scientist? Start with a first-rate mind, add curiosity, and mix in the will to win for the right reason. So there are three ingredients in the making of a scientist. And Richard had all the qualities that made him a true scientist. He had a first rate mind, curiosity, and a will to win for all the right reason. So, this is the chapter. Let's know about the most important short questions from this chapter. Question number 1: what rare achievement did Richard manage at the age of 22? Question number 2: where did Richard grow up? How did he spend his time? Question number 3: why did Albright started tagging the butterflies? Question number 4: who was Dr. Frederick? Why did Richard Albright look to him for fresh ideas? And next question: what experiments and projects does Richard then undertake? Long question is character sketch of Richard Albright and what are the qualities that go into the making of a scientist? So let's move to the next chapter and that is
मुझसे ये मत पूछो मेरी जॉब सेफ है या नहीं, बस अपनी डेट ऑफ बर्थ डालो, मैं कुंडली से बता दूंगी किस साल और किस फेज में जॉब कर सके। मैं तसल्ली देने के लिए बात नहीं करती, मैं करियर के वीक पीरियड्स पे काम करती।
The chapter is the necklace. This story revolves around Matilda Loisel, a beautiful young woman born into a family of clerks. Matilda desires a life of luxury and elegance. Despite her beauty and charm, Matilda marries a clerk who worked in the Office of Education. One evening, Mr. Loisel, her husband, returned from his office with a large envelope. The envelope consisted of an invitation to a ball party at the minister's residence. She denied the invite as she does not have a suitable attire and accessories. So her husband, eager to please her, offered money for a new dress. After Matilda got her new dress, she wanted new jewelry to complete her look. So her husband advised her that she should go to MME Forrester, who is her friend, and borrow her jewelry. Next day, Matilda went to her friend's house. She told MME Forrester her problem and borrowed a diamond necklace. The night of the ball arrived, and Matilda was happy at the occasion. She looked very, very beautiful. She danced with great enthusiasm and happiness and went home at 4 a.m. With great enthusiasm, Matilda returned home and was changing her dress. She noticed that the necklace was not around her neck. She cried and began to weep as her necklace was not there. Her husband and she searched for it, but they not got the necklace. So they searched everywhere, but the necklace was not found. Now, Matilda and Loisel urgently needed a replacement of the necklace. They found a similar one at the shop at Palaces Royal, priced at 40,000 francs. They bought the necklace for 36,000, but that was still too much. Loisel had only 18,000 francs from his father, so he borrowed the rest from various lenders. This borrowing the money put them in a tough financial situation and they spent years struggling to pay off their debts. Now, years had passed. After replacing the necklace, Loisels changed their lifestyle. They moved to a smaller house, even dismissed their maid. Matilda did household chores. Matilda's appearance also changed. They repaid the debts after 10 years. So, the entire episode took 10 years. And after 10 years, one Sunday, while walking in the Champs Elysees, Matilda encountered MME Forrester, where she called her. but she did not recognize her as Matilda looked very bad and her condition was very poor. But when Mammy Forrester, Matilda approached her and revealed the truth about the necklace, Mammy Forrester was touched by Matilda's honesty. So she revealed that how is that? The original necklace had been fake and worth only 500 francs. And oh, she said, oh, my poor Matilda, mine were false. They were not worth over 500 francs. So this is the story that has the sad ending. Most important question from this chapter, long question is character sketch of Matilda. Short questions are why was Matilda unhappy? Question number 2, why did Matilda throw the invitation spitefully? Question number 4, why did Matilda leave the ball party in a hurry? What does it show about her character? And how did Loisel manage to pay for the necklace? So these are some important questions from the chapter The Necklace. Now we will read the chapter Bholi. This story is written by K.A. Abbas. The story Bholi follows the life of a young girl named Sulekha. Yes, the real name of Bholi is Sulekha. Sulekha, who is called Bholi due to her simplicity. Bholi is the fourth daughter of Ramlal. So Ramlal had 4 daughters named, yes, learn the name of the 4 daughters. So the eldest is Radha, second daughter is Mangala, third daughter is Champa, and fourth daughter is Sulekha. And Ramlal had 2 sons also. From a young age, Bholi faces several challenges. At 10 months old, she has fallen off the cot, which had damaged some part of her brain. Since then, she remained a backward child. When she was 2 years old, she suffered from smallpox, which left her disfigured with deep black marks. Bholi also struggled to speak and stammered, so other children often made fun of Bholi. One day, a girls' primary school opens in their village. The Tehsildar encouraged Ramlal to send his daughters to a school as an example. So Ramlal and his wife decided to send Bholi to school. Bholi was initially scared to go to school as she feels that, like her cow Lakshmi, she is going to be sold. But when she went to school, she is bathed, her hair is oiled, and she is given new clothes to wear. When Bholi reached the school, Bholi was happy to see other girls of her same age. In school, Bholi felt comfort and encouragement from her kind teacher. She begins to learn and gains confidence. Years had passed, and Bholi's family receives a marriage proposal from Bishambar Nath for Bholi, who is an old but rich grocer. Bholi initially agreed due to her sense of duty towards her family's honor. The wedding preparations begin. However, when Bishambar saw Bholi's disfigured face, he demanded a large sum of money as dowry. Ramlal, to save his family's honor, agrees to pay. But when Bholi learns of Bishambar's greed, she refuses to marry him in front of everyone. And here is the crucial part. Bholi's refusal shocks her family and guests. When Bisambar and everyone went away, Bholi informed her family that she would not marry and take care of her parents in their old age. She also told them that she would teach at the same school where she reads. Sulekha's teacher, who was watching all this drama, approved Bholi's decision. She smiled at her with satisfaction, just like an artist who is satisfied after completing her masterpiece. So this is the story of Bholi, and some important short questions from this chapters are: question number 1, why is Sulekha called Bholi? Question number 2, why was Bholi's father worried about her? Question number 3, name all the 4 daughters of Ramlal. Question number 5, how did Bholi console her father at the end of the story? And question number next, why does the marriage not take place? Long question is, yes, character sketch of Bholi is the most important question, and question number 2 is, dowry is negation of their girl's dignity. Discuss it with reference to the story Bholi. So move forward to the last chapter of the book, and that is the book that saved the earth. This is the play which is set in the 25th century. This is a fantasy. It is based on the theme that half-fed knowledge is always dangerous. So this chapter is occurred in two parts, two scenes. Scene first. Scene first is the first scene of the play belongs to the 25th century in the Museum of Ancient History on the planet Earth. The historian introduces the audience to the era of the 20th century, known as the era of the book. He explains that books played a significant role in society during that time, educating and entertaining. One of the strongest things a book did was that it saved the earth. The historian then tells them that a book saved the earth from the Martian invasion of 2040. The scene that shifts to Mars space control, where the great and mighty think tank. Yes, think tank and its apprentice Noodle command the Martian invasion of Earth. Think tank, proud of his intelligence, orders communication with the manned space probe heading off to Earth. And then scene 2. This scene shifts to Mars space control in the Centerville Public Library. The people present in the space probe are Captain Omega, Sergeant Oop, and Lieutenant Iota. They are confused and puzzled. They are not familiar with books and don't understand them. Think Tank calls them sandwiches and orders the crew to eat them. The wise Noodle gently suggests that they may be devices of communication. So, Think Tank asks the probe team to listen to them. They do not hear anything again. Noodle very politely suggests that the Earthlings watch them. They can't read the books and came to a conclusion that the printed lines and pictures must be some kind of code. Yes, they thought that books are some kind of code. Think Tank then asked the probe team to eat the vitamins given to them to read the code. They follow him and are able to read the book. The lines are about Mistress Mary and her garden of cockle shells and silver bells. There's the poems written in the book. So they read the poem. Mistress Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow with cockle shell and silver bells and pretty maids all in a row? And then again they read, hey, diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon, the little dog laughed to see such sport, and the dish ran away with the spoon. Yes, and they meant it badly. Humpty Dumpty. Last poem is Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men can't put Humpty Dumpty together again. He thinks to be his picture. Think Tank declares that the Earthlings have seen him and they are planning to capture Mars Central Control as well as him. So he at once cancels the invasion. He orders Noodle to prepare a space capsule for him to escape. He asks his probe to leave. He orders his fleet to escape to the star Alpha Centauri and evacuate the entire planet of Mars. The historian reveals that it was Mother Goose, a book of rhymes, nursery rhymes book that saved the Earth. Mars and Earth are now friends. Noodle succeeded Think Tank and became the head of Mars. Earthlings have been set up a library in their capital city of Marsopolis. However, Martians can never gather the courage to read the nursery rhyme book Mother Goose again. So this is the comedy play and very interesting chapter. Some short questions from these chapters are: who is Think Tank? What does he want to do? Question number 2. Name the person who are in the Mars space control. Question number 3. What difficulty do the crew of the space probe face on Earth? Next question. Why was the 20th century called the era of the book? Next question. Noodle avoids offering Think Tank, but at the same time he corrects his mistake. How does he manage to do that? And the most important long question from this chapter is: how did a book of nursery rhymes saves Earth from the Martian invasion? So, children, this is the summary of all the chapters of your book, Footprints Without Feet. So, read it and understand it. The important questions of the chapters, you may have learned all the questions. So, we will meet in the next video. Till then, tata, bye-bye. And thank you for watching. Thank you for your invaluable support. Bye-bye.